Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is Steel Curtain Network editor Dave Schofield coming at you Tuesday night, just after 9 p.m. Where else would you rather be as a Steelers fan? And with me, as always, except when he's not, is my big brother Rich, and this just happens to be one of those weeks that he's not. That's right. Big Bro Scho is down for the count. He made it through last week's show, not feeling well. He even ended up with an ER visit since then. But bottom line is he had some stuff, but the main thing he's dealing with now is he has pneumonia. So he can't talk very much without coughing with a big coughing fit. So I'm like, dude, take the week off. It's all right. He really wanted to be here. He's probably already in bed. If not, he might be in the live chat. But instead, what do we do? What do we do each time when either Rich Ryer isn't here? We bring in an honorary Scho Bro. So tonight I've got a special guest because I've been on his show before when he hosts the Steelers Q&A. So I have one, Jeremy Jerome Betts, joining me tonight. Jeremy, how's it going?
It's going great, and I am proud to be an honorary Scho Bro tonight. I'm a Betts bro. I've got two brothers, and so I know that bro life, and I'm ready to do some bro talking tonight. Let's do it.
Yeah, well, bottom line is like I try to say it, this is our family show. This is just two brothers sitting around talking about the Steelers. Rich and I, after the games, we specifically would not talk until we came to the show. So all the things that we wanted to say about it was here. And this is kind of how it works. Well, it's special because last week Rich and I talked about it, and he lied to us. I was on location. I had a different background because I was in South Carolina, but I was there and I said, next week I'll have my flag back behind me and we'll get to talk about new members of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, unfortunately for Rich, he doesn't get to talk about it. So we get to. Now, the first thing, I'll go ahead and say this, not a new member of the Steelers, but last Friday the Steelers re-signed Braden Fajoko. So that's one that was there. Then we had the news late Sunday night of Russell Wilson. We are not going to discuss Russell Wilson right now. We're saving that for the second part of the show because with Rich being gone and him not wanting to talk about it yet, it's the perfect time to discuss quarterbacks. So we're going to talk quarterbacks in the second part, and then we're still going to keep our same format that we do here. So we're going to talk the rest of the news. That's what we're going to do here for the first part. So, do you really want to talk about the new punter? How much you want to spend there?
Well, I after doing a 5-hour film breakdown on every punt, that he has done the last 3 years and all that, I think I've got a pretty good bead on this guy. No, seriously though, I think it's an upgrade. And there were a lot of people talking about his struggles with hang time. I think that's one of the issues that he's had over the course of his career. I don't see that as big a deal in Pittsburgh because what you need more is the ability to kick it through that wind, kick it through the swirling, and get it down the field. I think he's got the leg for that. I think he knows how to work the ball, and we'll see how it plays out. I know he played in the Dome the last couple of years with the Texans, but just a guy that is consistent, and that is something the Steelers could definitely use. That's really all I have on Cameron Johnson.
But Jeremy, he's the whole reason you're here tonight. He's an Ohio State punter.
That's true.
You're supposed to have the inside knowledge.
I'll tell you this.
State guy.
I'll tell you this about him. One of those guys when his time is coming in the draft or undrafted free agency because he's a punter, obviously. His teammates always talk about him because he's the punter, and he's just one of those guys that really lived on personality, and he's got that resemblance to a famous comedian, Bill Burr. I think that plays into his favor
Pittsburgh
a little bit.
Comedian, right?
Yes, Pittsburgh comedian.
Pittsburgh guy? Yeah,
I think so. I think you're right. Yeah, and I
just know him from The Mandalorian.
From The Mandalorian, that's right.
Yeah, and the Daddy's Home movies.
He's I mean, I haven't necessarily followed his comedian career too much, but the fact that he was on Mandalorian was, hey, that's a boost for his career anytime you get on Star Wars. So let's just hopefully hope that my Buckeye, former Buckeye,
I was wrong. They said he's from Boston.
The Boston comedian.
Yeah, he's a Boston. Well, I don't know. That was me being wrong with that. I was
those
thinking,
Patriots.
Yeah, that's but that doesn't matter. Back to the punter. home time has actually been Presley Harvin's best aspect. If you think about it.
It goes,
Um,
it goes,
yeah.
it goes up.
Yeah. So, kicking at Ohio State, that at least tells you that it's not like he's never kicked outside. And he kicked for the Eagles, so it's vital familiarity. So you have that. My biggest thing is $9 million over 3 years for a punter. That's like a little bit ouchy for me if you're not sure that it's going to be great. But hey, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. We talked too much about punter already. Let's get to the big one. I did a breaking news podcast earlier today with Jefferson Bartholomew Hartman, where we talked about the Steelers signing Patrick Queen.
Yeah.
Biggest free agent signing the Steelers have ever had in terms of money, because it's $13.67 million per season, APY when it works out. I said there that it was, I estimated on that podcast, it was going to probably be around $6 million cap hit the first year. And now the reports are, when you work it out, 6.11333333. So I was pretty close. That, especially for that first year, doesn't sound bad. We've got some people with Steel Curtain Network, they're a little bit upset when they hear that Willie Gay Jr. signed for 1 year, $5 million, and they could have had him and things of that nature. What was your knee-jerk reaction to Patrick Queen?
So the rumblings on the big Twitter platform were that the Steelers were starting to focus in and had a big signing coming up. And so I was kind of hopping on board that train. I was like, hey, it sounds like they're going to make a move. And it was interesting to me that the Derrick Henry move happened right beforehand, where he goes to Baltimore.
Yeah.
And so I tweeted out 15 minutes before the Steelers announced their move, before the move was announced to bring in Patrick Queen. Not by the Steelers, exactly. But I said, how do you stop a king? You get a queen. And that's exactly what the Steelers did. So my knee-jerk reaction was, this is a guy that it changes the athleticism spectrum on the Steelers defense when you talk about the middle of the defense. And that's a place where the Steelers have kind of struggled to get elite athletes, especially at linebacker, and keep them healthy. So whether he stays healthy in Pittsburgh, it will remain to be seen. But I love the signing, and I thought that the money was just an absolute steal for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the way they were able to structure it. Omar Khan working his magic there like only he can with the cap. I really like the player. I think he's gonna fit very well in Pittsburgh with how they like to play linebacker and his versatility. I don't think that he is a Roquan made man, if you will. A lot of Steeler fans saying Roquan Smith was the guy who unlocked him, and that may be the case. He could play more free, but when you watch his tape, he creates so much for himself. It's not just a Roquan Smith thing. He kind of came into his own the last couple seasons after being allowed to free up his game a little bit.
Yeah, and that's one of those, the people in the live chat, both on this show and on the Steelers preview, he was one of those, I'd really like him. And then other people like, they won't ever be able to afford him.
Yeah.
Coming off of a Pro Bowl season, second team All-Pro last year. And so I was like, that would be pretty cool. But if the Steelers can't afford him, they can't afford him. I mean, so there's a lot of pipe dreams out there, like the Christian Wilkinson. My goodness, how much did he bring in there? I'm like, wow, I don't see the Steelers doing that when they're still paying guys like Cam Hayward. Now, I don't know if you heard this on our Breaking News podcast, and there might be people here listening live right now that didn't hear it on the Breaking News podcast. Jeff dropped a little nugget there that he got from our source today that expect sometime, maybe not in the next couple hours, maybe it might not be. I'm even saying it could be much further down the line. But before the start of this season, because I didn't hear the source myself to know the exact timeline, look for a Cam Hayward extension to bring down his cap hit. So that should be coming. So we got that from our source today, who told us yesterday the Steelers really are shopping Diontae Johnson because they feel like they need to refresh the room. And I thought that was interesting. We'll get to that in a second. Because back to Patrick Queen, I just find it interesting. Maybe it was just if you can't beat them, join them. Because was he like 1-7 against the Steelers since he
Yeah,
joined the Ravens?
he
Because that's
was.
what the Steelers have done.
Yeah, the Steelers have kind of. I mean, that's not been a rivalry the last 3 or 4 years now, and it's the craziest thing
a
to
little bit
me.
more one-sided on that rivalry.
Yeah, that's true. They've been close games. That's definitely true. But you're talking about. I think the Steelers are uniquely built for the AFC North. That's why they always have a good AFC North record, and whether that translates to winning games against the rest of the league when you start playing the upper echelon player or teams in the playoffs has proven less than stellar at this point, but we'll see if that changes this year. I just think that a guy like Patrick Queen can do so much for your defense that his versatility just allows you to do whatever you want to. One of his better stats is his ability to blitz, his ability to get upfield and get after quarterbacks. I think he had the most pressures of any inside linebacker this last season.
Or like the fastest time or something like that with these pressures.
And
crazy.
Despite not being in the top 10 in number of blitzes, he's very efficient when he gets after the quarterback. So I just think that's a guy that the Steelers can use very well. And I saw Aaron Curry. If you don't follow the Steelers linebacker coach, he has a great X account. It's fantastic. And his reaction to the news was very positive. I think he's going to love having Patrick Queen in-house.
Yeah. And I know some people weren't happy with it. Like I said, I feel that the Steelers know more about these players than any of us. We can watch as much film as we want. We can be deep dive into everything, especially when it comes free agency, because I don't watch every game of other teams. I watch every game of the Steelers. Now I watch a lot of games when the Steelers aren't playing, but I feel that they know better about this stuff than me. So therefore, if they like it, I like it. Until we kind of see how it goes down. So I'm always, I'd say cautiously optimistic, but really let my optimism come through. We better get to the big one because we didn't do a breaking news podcast for this one because it happened within the last, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. So therefore, I said to Jeff, do we need to do this? He's like, talk about it on your show tonight. I said, all right, here we go. The trade did happen. The Steelers did trade Diontae Johnson. Now, I was not in favor of the Steelers trading Diontae Johnson simply based on production.
Yeah.
I was okay if they were trading Diontae Johnson because of more off the field locker room type stuff. I wrote an article about it. I even said I thought there was a bunch of malarkey about, he doesn't fit Arthur Smith's offense. You know what? Then Arthur Smith needs to be able to know how to use a wide receiver like Diontae Johnson. Yeah. If that's who you have and that's your guy. But if he's kind of a pain, then I understand. So our source told us that the Steelers were trying to kind of refresh the room. Mm-hmm. I think this has a big hole at wide receiver now. I think there is. The question is, because the trade was, for those of you that might not know what happened, Diontae Johnson traded the Carolina Panthers. It was Diontae Johnson for, is it Diontae Jackson?
Diontae Jackson, yes.
Okay, I want to make sure I got the first name right. Diontae Jackson.
DJ for DJ.
Yep. Who is a cornerback. He was selected in the second round of the 2018 draft. They swapped them. Their salaries for this year are close, but Diontae Jackson actually has higher salary. He's 10.512, somewhere around there. Where Diontae Johnson was 10 million. So right now, the Steelers actually took a little bit of a cap hit in this trade of about $500,000. Right. But I wouldn't be shocked if they're going to be maybe reworking a deal. Think of trading for Allen Robinson last year. Do you think that's a possibility?
Yeah, I do. I would expect it as well. From where I stand on like the actual player, Diontae Jackson at $10 million isn't terrible because he's a solid second cornerback, in my opinion. And I know he had an injury in 2022, an Achilles injury, but last year he came back and played all season long and looked pretty good. I think another year removed from that, he could be even a little bit better. He's still, I think, 28, 29 years old. So he's still fairly young. I just think that it's a good, solid addition. And what the Steelers needed on defense in the secondary was at least a guy that can play above replacement level at the cornerback 2 spot. And that's what you get in Diontae Jackson. So when you look at the contract from that perspective, it's not a bad deal overall, but I do think that the Pittsburgh Steelers will attempt to, because if I'm not mistaken, this is the last year of his deal with the Carolina Panthers.
Yes,
is that
3
correct?
void years, but
Okay.
because the Panthers use that to spread out his signing bonus, so they have that dead money all going to have to come back due to them. That dead money doesn't carry over to the Steelers, which I want to bring this up because Mr. Man put in the live chat. He's like, no, the Steelers are saving $5 million. DJ's cap hit was higher. It's not about cap hit. It's about money paid this year. DJ's cap hit was $15 million, but he had over $5 million in dead money. The dead money stays with the Steelers, just like Diontae Jackson's dead money stays with the Panthers. They were both over $15 million in dead money, but it's about how much they have to be paid this year is the only part that comes over. So that's the difference in the money there and how that works. I didn't get to finish up saying, because of course I wanted to get into talk about it. There was draft picks involved. The Steelers get the Panthers 6th round draft pick, which is, well, I don't know. I don't know if it's the top one. It's up there.
Yeah. It's 178. It's like, it's almost the first pick or so of the 6th round.
It's up there. And the Steelers gave up their 7th round. So the Steelers no longer have a 7th round draft pick. Instead, they have 2 6th, and they got one earlier than their own 6th. I'll be honest with you. I don't know that I like what the Steelers got out of this trade, which tells me this was more about moving Diontae Johnson than anything. Because I don't know that the Steelers have really filled their void at cornerback while creating a bigger void at wide receiver.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a 1-for-1 because you're talking about arguably your number 1 wide receiver on the team, and at least in targets. But if the Pittsburgh Steelers, like, I mean, one other than the standard is the standard, the thing Mike Tomlin might say the most is volunteers, not hostages. And if Diontae Johnson was going to be a hostage, then the Steelers would rather cut bait. And at least they were able to get something solid in return as far as the player goes. The draft pick compensation is lackluster, if we're being honest. But when you talk about hostage in the locker room or not having to worry about that and still moving up in the draft a couple spots, 7th round to 6th round is not going to make anybody keel over from excitement, obviously. But you at least have something there. And so I don't hate it from that perspective. But if this was, no, Diontae Johnson is all in for 2024 and we're just wanting a facelift on the wide receiver room, that would be a little bit iffier to me of reasoning to go through with something like this, because you do give away a guy who is going to have value to the Panthers, who have a young quarterback, could have had value across the league, maybe in a larger capacity from a draft capital perspective, if you decided that you wanted to shop him a little bit more and didn't want to take just whatever you could to get him out the building necessarily.
Yeah. And honestly, the reports were that Diontae Jackson was possibly going to be just released by the Panthers. So this was basically, these two teams took each other's cast-offs that they didn't want anymore with very similar contracts, 1 year left. And I know people are saying, oh, but there was the roster bonus now that the Steelers would pay. That's all rolled into one big lump sum, what I'm saying. Sure. Diontae Johnson was going to be owed $10 million this year. Yes, it was $7 million in base, $3 million in roster bonus. It doesn't matter. That $10 million goes to Carolina. They're paying it. You don't even want to start to understand the breakdown of Diontae Jackson's contract, because it's in a way that the Steelers don't do it. Okay. I'll read you some of it real quick. $4,722,500 in a base salary. $4 million is a roster bonus. $1.7 million in a per game bonus, which See, that's the thing with the per game bonus. That's not 1.7 million per game. That's when you add them all up, is the way they do it here on Over the Cap. That might be some of which not counting. No, I don't know that all that counts towards the salary cap because it's based on how many games he played last year. Do you know how many games he played last year?
I think it was all of them, but
okay, then it would be all of it because it's likely to be earned versus unlikely to be earned. They based off the year before. Like if he would have only played 10 games, then 7 of those games would have been in the unlikely to be earned category, which meant it wouldn't count on the salary cap until the next year if he earned it. So but now if he doesn't earn all that, I have a feeling the Steelers will wrap that all up into one big thing. He's also got workout bonuses and stuff like that. Stuff the way that the Steelers don't do it. But you look at all that as a total and what it's going to come to is what it really, really comes down to with that one.
Yeah.
Don't want to spend too much because we do want to get to the quarterbacks here. But like I said, I still think corner is a need. I still think corner is something that they could address now in the draft. Now, depending on what they do in free agency, wide receiver could be as well. But you got to think that there's something brewing with wide receiver. That they had something else in mind.
Yeah, I agree. When free agents or before free agency started, I was very bullish on the thought that the Steelers could spend on maybe even 2 corners and then draft one. I mean, we're not just talking about double dipping, right? Once in the draft and once in free agency. I think a triple dip was definitely on the table for the Steelers there. That might flip now to wide receiver too, where once you've considered this a trade factor, I think the Steelers are going to definitely add a free agent wide receiver. And then I think the draft is where they identify the Diontae Johnson replacement, if you will. Whatever they get in free agency to me would be a role-playing piece, wide receiver 3, slot guy, whatever you want there, deep threat. I don't know what direction they'll go with that, but when you have a wide receiver class like this, which could very well be historic. I mean, you're probably going to find starting caliber receivers, whether that's wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. You're going to find those guys in the 4th round of this draft, and the Steelers have 2 picks in that 4th round. So that to me is where the Steelers probably identify their ability to replace Diontae Johnson. Now, a lot of chatter about the Steelers really loving this wide receiver class. Rome Odunze, A.D. Mitchell. There's going to be guys in that 1st round that there's going to be a lot of conversation about it in Pittsburgh, especially if you start to see quarterbacks going early, offensive linemen going early, and some of these guys start to fall down the board. If Rome Odunze is sitting there at 11 and hasn't been picked yet, and the Steelers are sitting at 20, we've seen them move up higher for somebody not nearly as hyped as a 10. Yeah, up to pick 10 for Santonio, up to pick 10 for Devin Bush. I mean, there's precedent for it. Not an Omar Khan era, I guess, necessarily, but
we'll see.
But it's possible. And so it's very, very likely that the Steelers could attack that position heavily in the draft and free agency now, both.
And now what I say with the draft, and I know you're a draft guy, so it doesn't mean as much to you. I always tell people, hold on. Wait for free agency, because something that you think the Steelers absolutely have to have, then they address it in free agency and it comes off the board completely. So a lot of this could change in the next 48 hours still. I continually use the example of, they got to go tight end. They got to go tight end in 2020. You know why? They didn't go tight end because they signed Eric Ebron, which we didn't expect. So that's just what it is. To come back, we're about ready to take a break, but I want to give some updates. We got a lot of people in the live chat that might not have been at the beginning. 2 things. One, Big Brosko was out this week because he's got pneumonia. So he's not here. So Jeremy's filling in. So we got someone called you, I think it was Afton called you Scho Bro.
Yeah, I like it. I'll take it.
And the other thing is people are giving bad numbers in the live chat. The Steelers don't save money in this trade. As of right now, they lose $500,000. They have to do a different deal with Jackson for that to change. Don't look at cap numbers when you look at swapping them, because you're not swapping them together. It's $10 million in cash that the Panthers are going to have to then take that the Steelers save. 10.5, just over that the Steelers are going to have to pay Jackson that the Panthers save. So that's the numbers right now. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're diving into the topic of the show, quarterback. Woo! Woo! All right, so if you're with us here, YouTube, Facebook, X, wherever, we're not going anywhere. If you're with us here on the audio side, stick around. We'll be right back after these messages. All right, Steelers fans, let's get into this. I know there was a lot of news to talk about. Part of that news is the topic of this show. Rich isn't here, so we can finally knock this out of the park. We've been going through switching back and forth, offense to defense, covering one position each week. We're going quarterback. So, and I brought in Jeremy because I wanted to make sure I brought in someone who I don't think feels the same way about quarterback as me. I didn't want to just bring it, didn't want a yes man. So let's go ahead and set this up. And it started a couple weeks ago. I can't remember exactly how long ago it was that our inside source said, hey, here's the deal. Justin Fields, no.
Yeah.
Not giving up the draft capital for it. And they don't like the whole fifth-year option thing. Kirk Cousins, no. Way too expensive, coming off the injury, older, no. But if the Steelers can't sign Mason Rudolph, look for them to get involved with Russell Wilson. Now, some people are like, oh, the Steelers did Rudolph so wrong because by bringing in Wilson, now there's no – here's what was – now, think of it this way. And I want to know if you feel this same way, Jeremy. There was reports that the Steelers talked to Mason Rudolph on Sunday. So, in other words, Russell Wilson, it looked like he was wanting to already come to an agreement to where he was going before free agency started, before the legal tampering period. It looked to be like that was something he wanted. Mason Rudolph, wisely for himself, wanted to hit free agency and test those waters. Those two things didn't line up for the Steelers if they wanted to go Rudolph option 1, Wilson option 2. What you can't miss out on option 2 because you're waiting around for option 1, because then you're going to have to overpay for option 1.
Right.
If you want to keep it. So I don't think they did Rudolph 30. I think they still said, hey, this is what we're doing. We're going to bring him in if we don't have you.
Yeah.
What say you? Do you still want to wait or do you want to get something done right now? I don't know if that's what they did, but that's the way I envision that in my mind. Then, do you think that might have been how it played out a little bit? Or
yeah, it makes sense to me that Mason Rudolph was kind of the guy that they were like, okay, now listen, this guy's going to come to us for $1.2 million if we decide to go with this. And that to me is the big kicker in all this is the price tag. And so we would prefer to have you, Mason, but you know, if we can't come to something like yesterday, like now, then we're going to have to do this. We've got to for us to do it.
That's the timeline. The timeline's been thrust upon them. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, you know, whether the Steelers would have liked to continue talks with Rudolph after Russell Wilson came in or not, because there's been some reports that he was still on their radar. That is actually kind of neither here nor there because because Mason Rudolph, it's been clear from the get-go that he wanted to test free agency and see what he could get. And as we've seen, the market for him as a primary backup is actually fairly robust. It's just working out the number, figuring out where he wants to go. But I do think that it does play a role when you get the opportunity. And I don't care that he didn't live up to the contract that the Broncos tried to give him, Russell Wilson, that is, with what you consider the corresponding situation around him. It was very difficult for him to ever live up to that expectation in the first place.
Yeah.
So now you're talking about a guy who you can get at a historically low price for a guy of his caliber, even if he's somewhat diminished from his Seattle heydays. You kind of have to jump on that if you're Pittsburgh. And then what you do is you say, all right, this is our bar now for Kenny Pickett and for you, Russ, as well. One of you is going to have to beat out the other, and whoever it is, we're going to ride with. And so that to me is where this kind of all tumbled into place here for the Steelers, is that Rudolph wanted to wait. And then it was Russell Wilson who said, okay, I really would, if we're going to make this happen, I think we need to do it this weekend. And so the Steelers kind of jumped on it.
Yeah. And now to look at how this went, I kept trying to correct people in different places, in comments of articles, sometimes in the live chat, various other things. It was, oh, well, Russ, I even tried to correct Jeff and Brian on the preview. Not this past week, obviously, but I think it was the one before, even the one before that, talking about Russell Wilson. They're like, well, I think it'll be a 2-year deal. I'm like, no. The whole time, it was going to be 1 year league minimum. I had people saying, oh, well, he's going to want a signing bonus and then for a number of years it's spread. I'm like, no. They're like, but the signing bonus is spread out over the years of the contract. No, it is for salary cap purposes.
Yeah.
But every penny of a signing bonus would let Denver off the hook.
Yeah.
That's not what was going to happen. Now, the only thing that the people are like, well, so it's only, are you saying it could only be 1 year? I'm like, nah. If I was Russell Wilson and he wants more than 1 year, what it's got to be is base salary, nothing more year one, large guaranteed contract in year two.
Yeah.
If someone was going to offer him that, that's the only thing he was going to get more than 1 year. And the reports were Wilson was looking for large guaranteed player option contract for year two.
Yeah.
So not only that, as long as he wanted the money was his, but it was his choice whether he stayed for it or not. And when they found out nobody was going to give that to him, then he was fine to go with the 1 year and go where he wanted to go.
Right.
So that's the story behind that. I'm not ready to put the cap number for Russell Wilson yet until I see for sure from either from Over the Cap or Spot Rack. I want to know if it's technically a veteran salary benefit contract. If that is, he's getting paid $1.21 million, and he only counts $985K. If it's that, I mean, the Steelers already have a couple players with that. It could even be that much of a cap savings, but I just don't know if that is even something that's going on. I know pretty much about that, but this could be an extenuating circumstance that I never thought of that could make that an issue. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But now let's talk about Russell Wilson coming in. I wrote an article. I started it last week while I was on vacation. Started it, I think, on Wednesday or Thursday. Jeff kept saying, I don't need it. You don't have to finish it. But I knew the premise of it. And one of the main things about it was because I had Russell Wilson in mind. And it was three reasons to not overreact about Steelers signings and free agency, something like that. It ran on Sunday. And one of them was, the three reasons were, number one was just because someone meets with someone doesn't mean that it's a done deal. The third thing was, I can't remember the third one. It doesn't matter. But the main one I was talking about with this one, it was the second item. Not every player is signed to be a starter.
Yeah.
And there's especially outside of the Steelers and a bunch of Steelers fans that they think, oh, this is done. Russ is the starter. Kenny's the backup.
Yeah.
Hold the phone there. And the reason I say hold the phone, not only that, Jeff put the article out there on Monday. Our source, who hasn't been wrong about it, called the Russell Wilson stuff and all these other things, told us this is still Kenny's job to lose. How do you feel about that, Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, where I had, so I'll just say this, like, first off, obviously, to me, from the beginning, whoever the Steelers brought in, Kenny Pickett wasn't just going to be cast aside unless that person was Kirk Cousins, in my opinion, because Kirk Cousins was the only one who had proven anything worthy of set it and forget it. You're our starter. Well, yeah, true. And to me, that has more to do with the team around him in those situations, defense specifically, than himself. But again, that's neither here nor there because he's not a member of the Steelers. So when you bring in Russell Wilson, I mean, let's just think about it from this perspective. In the best interest of the Pittsburgh Steelers organization, who should we want to win the quarterback job?
You're You're taking my thunder. I thought we weren't going to agree on this. It's Kenny effing Pickett.
Yes, it's Kenny Pickett. That's what's in the best interest of the Steelers organization.
Yes.
Where I think that I disagree with the Steelers' philosophy on this is I think that you should bring in Russell Wilson and say, Kenny, this is the bar for you to pass up.
Yes.
As opposed to saying, okay, Russell, you've got to beat out Kenny.
No.
That's kind of what I got from the
Russell
report.
beating out Kenny. I think it's Kenny Pickett's job to lose by showing he's not at Russell Wilson's current level.
Sure. Yeah. And to me, that makes perfect sense. Now, from the get-go, I'm saying Kenny Pickett isn't going to be able to do that, and Russell Wilson is going to win the starting job. That's just my opinion. But how you get there is you have to give Kenny a chance to see if he can clear that bar. And to me, also, if it's close, you go with Kenny Pickett. If it's close, you go with Kenny Pickett. You don't go with Russell Wilson.
Well, the thing is with Russell Wilson, what he should know is he should get a chance anyway, because one of Kenny Pickett's worst abilities is his availability.
Yeah.
That he's going to miss time. I mean, think about it. I keep saying the number. Kenny Pickett was 7-2 last year in games he started and finished. That means there were 8 games that he didn't.
Yeah.
8 games that he didn't. And at least 2 of those, I felt that Trubisky wasn't able to win those games, where I think Pickett or Russell Wilson or even Mason Rudolph would have.
Yeah.
So that's part of the thing. This is how I feel when it comes to Kenny Pickett. Because remember, this isn't just about Russell Wilson. This is about the Steelers room. Now, there's only 2 quarterbacks now. You're going to see somebody else that's really not and who knows? Maybe if no one will grab Mason Rudolph, he wants to come back for the same low salary that he had this year. That's the only thing that I'd say. Don't rule out Mason. That's how you don't rule out Mason. But if he has an opportunity, I think he should go grab it. Good for him. But when it comes to Kenny Pickett, some people are like, I think Kenny Pickett needs to sit for a year and really learn. No, this is it for Kenny Pickett. This is the year. Because after this year, they have to decide if they're going to pay what I expect to be probably $25 million or so in a 5th-year option. Yeah. Are you doing that for a player that wasn't a starter? No. Right. And if you're not picking up his 5th-year option, you're talking about a 4th year. Really, my goodness, what in the world's going on? You really don't have any answers there. That's not really much different than what you're going to have with Russell Wilson this year. 1 year, that much. And the Steelers have to, Pickett's 4th year, his contract was all guaranteed. So that's why you're right that it's in the Steelers' better interest, because they have Kenny Pickett for 2 years and beyond if he ends up being the guy. Right. But if he's not the starter this year, or if he is and loses the job, or things aren't right, then that means next year we are talking quarterback overhaul.
Right.
Whether it's can they afford to bring Russell Wilson back because he did great things, or what they're doing in free agency or the draft. Mm-hmm. That's my view on it when it comes to Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was just going to say,
hey D, I just saw that D was in the live chat. Who does the why can't I remember the name of the podcast? I used to do it with Brian. Week That Was. There we go.
Week That Was. There you go.
Yep.
Welcome, D.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just going to say on the Kenny Pickett front here that a lot of people in the live chat and where I hang out the most social media wise, which is X, Twitter, a lot of people are saying that Kenny should ask for a trade, or that the Steelers should trade Kenny Pickett with Russell Wilson.
They're going to get for him now. The rest of the league thinks he's terrible.
Yeah, this is to me, this is a quarterback room that can work because of the competition. And now once it's decided one way or another, I think you have to understand as a professional football player or professional and whatever, if you don't win it on your own merit, then nothing's going to be handed to you. And if you can't understand that, then what are you doing being a professional at anything? So go sit on your couch and complain on your social media platform. So to me, it's like, just because Kenny wouldn't be happy if he lost the job doesn't mean he's not going to stay on the team. I mean, either way, whoever wins the job, I mean, if Kenny Pickett wins the job, like you said, his worst ability has been availability, one of his worst. And Russell Wilson's 36 years old. There's no guarantee that he were to last a whole season as well. So everybody gets a shot here, and I think that this is a good situation for the Steelers, where you find out once and for all on Kenny Pickett this offseason, and then from there you can take an easy off-ramp next year by getting rid of both Kenny and Russell if Russell's not there doing what you need. And if Russell Wilson actually has himself a throwback season, then maybe you think about keeping him long-term. It's a win-win situation for the Steelers organization. The only bad thing that can happen is neither one plays very well, and you're in a real tough spot at quarterback next year. But then at least you have all your cards on deck to know that, hey, we've got to go get a quarterback however means necessary.
Yeah. And here's first and foremost, I don't care who wins the starting job for the Pittsburgh Steelers at quarterback. I just want the quarterback to not suck. Okay. That's first thing. Then I want them to be able to carry and win games. I mean, and that's the one thing that I do have to say about Kenny Pickett. He wins games. Now, it's interesting because I was arguing with someone in the live chat on the hangover last night. First, I mean, because they rattled off all the bad numbers about Kenny Pickett. I understand the 1.8 or 1.9 touchdown percentage, 6 touchdowns last season. There's a lot of bad numbers. There really are. But the same person that listed out all those numbers had said in their previous comment, we knew Kenny Pickett wasn't the guy on his first pass because it was intercepted. Sure. That tells me right there that you're just looking for numbers to line up with your hatred of Kenny Pickett. You can't say that you know anything about a quarterback on their first pass or their first game or their first season. Now, right now, what the Steelers are doing is, last year I felt like they went into the season, Kenny had to be the guy. Kenny needed to show he was the guy. This year, Kenny doesn't have to be the guy. If he shows he's not the guy, they should be all right. That's the move. The move. And I mean, if I'm Russell Wilson, why did he pick the Steelers? He looked at what was going on. Yep. He probably looked at the numbers of Kenny Pickett and say, I'm better than that. I'm going to win this job anyway.
Yeah. And I think he also saw Mike Tomlin and said, I want to play for Mike Tomlin. Mm-hmm. That to me, I want to play for an organization that knows what the heck it's doing. And of course we get people, well, Tim Tebow won games in spite of things. Yeah. No joke. I did this on Stat Geek already. Let me give you some numbers. No quarterback who entered the fourth quarter last year trailing, trailing at all, won more games than Kenny Pickett. Nobody. Yeah. Number 2 was Geno Smith. Okay. Nobody won more than Kenny Pickett. All right. You have that. You talk about the low touchdown percentage. And some people, I'm not someone who wants to make excuses for Kenny Pickett because, I'm a Pitt guy. I'm not pro Pickett. I'm not anti Pickett. I'm pro Pittsburgh Steelers getting a good quarterback. That's what I'm pro. And sorry, I'm kind of ranting here. But when it comes to some of these numbers, I had this. I was going to say I didn't use it on Stat Geek because I'd already covered some quarterback stuff. I've had this one in my back pocket for a little over a week now. I was looking at some of the numbers because the question is, was it Matt Canada? I mean, people are like, oh, well, you only saw, Mason Rudolph versus Kenny Pickett. And they're like, well, you don't have any Mason Rudolph with Matt Canada. Actually, you do. It was a tie against the winless Lions. Yeah. That was under Matt Canada. That was his one game with Matt Canada. So you can put that out there and you're like, well, was it really Canada? But look at this.
How could Kenny Pickett throw for more touchdowns when he had an offensive coordinator that wouldn't push the ball down the field in the air and wouldn't throw the ball in the red zone?
Yeah.
Steelers were threw some of the least number of passes in the red zone. And not only that, almost all of those, the overwhelming majority of those passes were on third down when the defense is expecting pass. So here's a stat for you. You ready for this, Jeremy?
Let's do it.
Kenny Pickett led the NFL last year in touchdown percentage on first down throws in the red zone.
Wow.
Of anybody that threw more than 2 passes.
Okay.
You had to throw
anybody
at least 2 passes.
Yeah.
2 passes.
I threw 2 passes in the NFL last year.
I'm just saying, two first down red zone passes.
Sure.
Okay. Sure. Because there was someone in there that had 1 and it was a touchdown. So obviously that wasn't the high. They have 100%. But Kenny Pickett threw 3 touchdowns in the red zone. All 3 were on first down. And he only threw 8 first down passes in the red zone. Because under Matt Canada, you knew that they were just going to, as soon as they get down there, they're going to run the ball. So my point is, some of his numbers are bad because he wasn't even given an opportunity much to have them be good. Yeah. So to me, the contrast between such a low touchdown percentage all the time and when he actually threw the ball on first down in the red zone being night and day, that's about your offensive philosophy, in my opinion. So I'm not saying Kenny Pickett's going to be great and look at all that. I'm just saying he's got really weird numbers.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with Matt Canada.
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with Canada. And I think the express directive early on to not put Kenny in situations where he's turning the ball over. And I think that was detrimental as well to the Steelers and his growth specifically. So I think the one caveat here the one factor here that we're not focused in as much on is the Arthur Smith effect. And we saw, and I'll give him this. Ryan Tannehill was a much more productive quarterback in Miami than a lot of people would give him credit for, and a much more productive quarterback in Miami than we've seen from Kenny Pickett, even under bad offensive coordinating and offensive scheme when Tannehill was there under Gase, and then not, comparable to Kenny Pickett with Canada. But I just think that Arthur Smith knows how to settle in a quarterback as far as his scheme goes. When you're talking about him as an offensive coordinator, focusing his entire intent and attention on the offense. So there is a universe where Kenny Pickett does play markedly better under Arthur Smith, markedly better, and where the scheme actually improves the quarterback's play on its own, while a guy in his third year takes another step. So when you consider the fact that you do have some intangibles in Kenny Pickett, if some of the tangibles actually show up this year, then you've got yourself at least a viable mid-tier quarterback potentially in this scheme. Now, whether he then becomes a scheme-dependent quarterback is another discussion, and whether that's good enough to get you to a Super Bowl is another discussion as well, because the goal of the Pittsburgh Steelers should be, we need guys on our team that can get us to a Super Bowl eventually. And if Kenny Pickett never becomes that, even if he's okay after this year, then eventually you're going to move on from him anyway. So there's it's stepping stones. And I know Steeler fans want Super Bowls right now, but the fact of the matter is, until you have another franchise quarterback, you're probably not getting a Super Bowl in any window there, unless your roster is just that much better than the teams that have that guy at quarterback. And we even saw from the 49ers this last year, even that wasn't enough because their roster was that, and they had a quarterback that was serviceable to make it all work. It still wasn't quite enough against Patrick Mahomes. And so I just think that you're in an NFL right now where the quarterback is king. And until you get another one that can play at an elite level, it's not going to matter in the long run overall, unless you get lucky one year and somebody gets hurt.
Yeah. Well, and everything that comes back to Kenny Pickett, sometimes we get told stuff from our sources. They're like, okay, just keep this in mind, but don't share this. And there was some stuff going on that was really, really strange with Kenny Pickett and Matt Canada.
Yeah.
The question is, why? Was it really Matt Canada or was it really Kenny Pickett? I don't know the answer to that. And I was hoping to get that answer last year when they finally fired Matt Canada to know that. Unfortunately, Kenny Pickett only lasted a game and a third. So I would like to have an answer. If the answer is that Kenny Pickett's not it, I'm fine with that. I want a definitive answer. I want, like I said, when they fired Matt Canada, you had to reduce the variables to figure out what's going on. So to me, the biggest thing I want from Kenny Pickett is an answer.
Yeah.
Is he way better and can do more that was being held back by one of the worst offensive coordinators the NFL's ever seen? Or was the offensive coordinator that bad because that's all we had to work with?
Yeah.
That's the question that we need answered. And what's great about that now is the Pittsburgh Steelers have an option.
Right.
That if it's the second one, it's not a wasted season.
Right.
Russell Wilson is a non-wasted season insurance.
Yes, exactly. That is at the very least. And that's why it was a no-brainer move to me to go get Russell Wilson, because the floor there is at least last year and probably a little bit higher from your quarterback and what the Steelers can do. So, what I was going to say something about the situation overall, and now I can't think of it. It had to do with why Russell Wilson would choose the Pittsburgh Steelers over everybody else, and why it was such, because the reports were that as soon as Russell Wilson and Mike Tomlin sat down together, it was fireworks. They loved what each other brought to the table. And so again, I can't remember exactly what I was going to say, but the fact of the matter is that Russell Wilson thinks he can win something in Pittsburgh. And I think the Pittsburgh Steelers feel that too. If Kenny Pickett isn't the guy, then at least they have a guy who can take them places in Russell Wilson while they're in the midst of figuring out their long-term plan at quarterback.
Yeah. Something that's being brought up, and it's Daniel, and it's funny because Daniel J, I love this to pick on Daniel, but this is with a lot of people in the live chat. People that didn't like Kenny Pickett from the beginning really don't like him now.
Yeah.
And they see everything of, I don't like Kenny Pickett. And I'm sorry, Daniel, you're one of those guys. But one of the things that he brought up was he said, Kenny refused to dress as a backup. That was a Mark Madden story. And you can even hear Mark Madden stuff on FFSN every Monday, Madden Monday on Breakfast with Ben's podcast. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But Madden's like, I'll tell you, absolutely for sure that happened and blah, blah, blah. But so many times Madden tells us stuff from his sources and he's wrong. You know what our source, who hasn't been wrong about anything, said? That absolutely didn't happen. Didn't happen at all. That's not how things work. That's not what it was. So people will repeat that as a thing that happened because they want to hold it against Kenny. And it didn't happen. That's not the way it went down. So there's that. Now, the other thing that I thought was hilarious, I don't know if you listened to Madden Monday on Breakfast with Ben's. That's one I always catch. Sure. They record Sunday evening. So to hear Mark Madden and what he said about Russell Wilson, there's no way he's ever coming and blah, 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 and all that stuff. And then hours later for that to go down. It's really, because I listened to it after the Russell Wilson stuff happened.
Right.
So I thought that was kind of funny that it went down that way. But that's who Mark Madden is, and that's okay. Hey, he drives the needle. He's a heel.
Yeah.
Okay. And also, I will tell you, people are like, oh, yeah, Kenny Pickett. He was not healthy at the end of the season. People say, oh, was he healthy enough to play? He was. He could have played through it. But the question is, with Mason Rudolph playing the way he was, do you want another quarterback who's playing through it to come in? I mean, the guy just had surgery on his ankle.
Yeah.
So if Mason Rudolph would have stunk too, we'd have seen Kenny Pickett at the end of the season. But you didn't need to do that. So that's other information that we got in regards to that. So like I said, I'm not pro Kenny Pickett. I'm just not anti Kenny Pickett. And I think,
Right.
and I think Kenny Pickett being the guy is the best thing for the Steelers. But what's more important for the Steelers is to get good quarterback play.
Right. Yep. And I think they have the insurance policy to make sure that works either way. And so that's why it's a good situation.
Yeah. And Daniel, no, Kenny Pickett did not say that. Check the transcripts. He didn't say it. We're going to take a quick break. We're running over, but we're still going to do what we do. We got our big question. Jeremy and I are going to do our 5 minutes of non-Steelers talk because we need to.
Nice.
All right. So stick around. We'll be right back. All right, here we go. Woo, we're back. Jeremy, this is fun. 5 minutes of non-Steelers talk. Rich and I do this. I'm doing something a little bit different this time because there's so many times I know the answer from my brother, so I don't want to ask the question. That's why I either pull it from the live chat to where we talked about something they wanted to hear. But this is my question for you. We're going to go away from the Steelers, but we are going to talk sports.
Okay. Cool.
I want to know what sports you played growing up and what was kind of your mindset behind sports. And then I'll answer the same thing.
Yeah. So I played football in high school and middle school and high school. So I was a captain all 4 years of high school and I really enjoyed it. I also played golf in high school. So kind of a dichotomy of sports, one, the very physical and the other, a very finesse game. And so those were my sports growing up. Sports to me were kind of the character building outlet for my energy, if you will. And so we didn't place a huge emphasis on playing sports when I was a kid, but I did participate because it was something that I always loved. I was a huge sports nut. I would have played everything.
I have to ask, where are you? You say you have brothers. Where are you in the order of things?
I'm the oldest. I'm the
You're
oldest.
The oldest.
I'm the oldest kid in the family.
I think this makes a difference when I get to talk about this. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was the chance for me to get out and put my passion for sports to the test and see how good I was. I enjoyed it. I loved it. My granddad big into golf, so I got to do that a lot. Worked at golf courses in high school. I played probably 3 or 4 times a week in high school. It was awesome. So getting to play both sports, I played golf in college as well for a year. And so those are the sports I played growing up. And really the role, I guess looking back on it now, that's where I learned, I learned how to posit my aggression and how to overcome my temper, because I had a temper like you wouldn't believe growing up. And that was how I learned to control it, was through sports, because you have to have such control in golf, especially, so you're not chucking clubs across the course and beating up grass and getting disqualified. So that was something that really changed my life, was the ability to play and to use that to curb my natural aggressive tendencies.
There you go.
Yeah.
I hated sports.
Okay.
Yeah. I was the youngest of 4, but my oldest sister, she was in band and drama and stuff like that. But then, Big Bro Scho, he played sports. And it's because I didn't find the right sports. Basketball was all right. I hated baseball. I mean, honestly, even when I played football up through high school, I didn't play until my junior year because there was a potential of me even being on the varsity team as a freshman. And I saw all the terrible hazing. And when I played youth league, they just made practice so miserable that you were like sick to your stomach before it started. So it was something that you just had to deal with. The games were pretty fun, but I even played basketball. I wrestled, I did other things. I didn't actually fall in love with sports until my freshman year of high school in the spring, when I joined track and field.
Okay.
And I actually had fun doing sports.
Yep.
And I loved it. And I went on, I did shot put and discus, and I went on and did it in college. So much so that even though I was being recruited to play football, I opted that I just wanted to go to college for what I was going to do with my life. And I was able to do track there, and track was fun. I was more about, I'd rather do something that I enjoy. So I didn't even play basketball my senior year, when I played basketball my whole life. because my junior year, they made me stop lifting because it affected my free throw shooting. And I wasn't allowed to shoot. I never went to the free throw line. So, but in practice, I was only hitting like 40 to 50% of my free throws. So, and it must have been my training. And then I came in third in the state in the shot put as a junior. And I'm like, I'm ranked number 1 going into next year. Do I really want to not train? So I trained through basketball season and then won a state championship in the shot put in high school. And then went on and did shot put at Hammer in college. But like, I never liked baseball. I was so happy to get away from baseball to do track. That was great. But that was what my brother did. He was a good baseball player. So I was kind of doing things because it was everyone did. To me, my mentality with sports was something that I had to do. I wasn't forced to do it. I just thought that's what people did. But it wasn't until I started to get older, until, like I said, my freshman year of high school, that I actually started to enjoy sports. So now, of course, I try to do as much sports as I can. I love golfing. I'm terrible at it, but I still do it. I've been in a golf league that golfs 9 holes on Fridays with my son for the last couple of years. It's a church golf league. So much fun. Okay. Yeah. Can't play softball anymore. I can't. My shoulders are done. I can't throw anymore. But that's the sports that I did. I ran cross country my first 2 years of high school rather than play football.
Okay. Yeah.
So I did a wide gambit of sports. There's not very many that I didn't do. I even did wrestling for a little bit as well.
Sure.
So that's just kind of, it was weird for me growing up that sports were something that I didn't like. And then finally the switch. I was wondering if anyone else felt that way. So
yeah.
Ooh, there's our 5 minutes. If you heard the alarm, we're already over our time, but we've got to get to our big question.
Yeah,
okay,
for sure.
Got to get to our big question. I told Jeremy what the question was because I didn't want to answer it along the way. So I'm going to, for those of you that might be new here, because we got a lot of people in the live chat tonight, I asked the question, Jeremy answers, I'll answer. Don't put your answer in the live chat until I put the question in there, because I'm not going to look until then. And then I'll bring up everybody that answers it. So, because we have a lot, this might take a while. And that we now have a second super chat that I need to get to before we do this. There we go. Kathy Ford, love Kathy, $10 to us to say, get well soon, guy in the middle. That's about Big Bro Scho. He's out with pneumonia. Hopefully he'll be back next week. Thank you so much, Kathy. $10 in the tip jar. Then we have from Blake Littrell. I don't know if I say that right or not. I mess up every week and they tell me and I forget. $1.99 into the tip jar says, who do you think of the Steelers 2024 5 wide receivers? Jeremy?
Ooh. 2024 5 wide receivers. Okay, so let's go George Pickens, Calvin Austin. I'm going to say Roman Wilson in the draft. And I'm going to say Curtis Samuel in free agency.
Ooh,
and then number five, a special teams guy. I'll just say they bring back Miles Boykin last minute for special teams.
I do too. I like him as being the number 5 guy because he's really about the special teams, and it's only in case of emergency break glass when it comes to the offense. So I'm going Pickens, free agent, Austin, somebody else on the roster that wins the job right now, whether it's who is it? Mims is out there. Who was the one that came up for a week or two early in the season that got called up? The other one that was in the practice squad. Dez was the first name I can't remember. And then Boykin. Someone like that, I think, could maybe sneak in one that just does a good job. So that's who I'm going with. So
sure.
Now, here we go. For the big question, I gotta take this away. So Jeremy, here's the big question. And while you're answering,
all right, let's do it.
When the smoke clears everything else, we hit September. The Pittsburgh Steelers are in Brazil. I don't know if they really will be or not. Maybe they're in Denver or whatever. Is that in Denver or home against Denver? I can't remember.
It's in Denver. In Denver. Yep.
Okay. Week 1. Steelers don't win the toss, so therefore the other team defers. They receive the kickoff.
Yep.
However, they're going to do kickoffs this year. Steelers get the ball. Who jogs out onto the field as the starting quarterback week 1?
Oh,
remember, don't answer in the live chat yet until I ask.
Okay. So I'm going to say it's Russell Wilson. Okay. I'm going to say that Russell Wilson proves that he is the better quarterback on the roster. and that number 3 comes rolling out as the QB1 heading into week 1. And
Okay.
to me, it's again, like I said before, Kenny Pickett, I wish him the best. I think that he has a shot. I do think he has a shot with when all is said and done. But I do think Russell Wilson proves to be the better quarterback.
Thank you, Afton. And then other people have said it too. It's Des Fitzpatrick.
Fitzpatrick.
Yeah. Fitzpatrick. That's who it was, someone else that I was saying as a potential wide receiver. To me, I'm going with I'll be different from you because I can. I'll go with Kenny Pickett for one of two reasons. Either one, the Steelers are too stubborn and he starts off and it doesn't work out where he's not the guy, or he's doing it because he really is. And frankly, I just want more than anything for them to have the best player out there that gives them the chance to win. That's what I really want. But if I had to pick one, just based on what I think the Steelers would do, I'm going to go with Pickett. I just put that in the live chat that says starting QB week 1, and we're going to get slaughtered with a bunch of answers all at once for people that were waiting, I'm sure. So
a lot of Russell Wilsons, I bet you.
Oh, yeah, they're already up there. Hold on, I bring up every one of them. Okay. What would have been another interesting question is who takes the first snap at OTAs? I think that one's obvious. I think that one's Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, I agree.
But this is, I think, a better question of who ultimately wins. Afton Ford says Russ. Gabriel Golden says Wilson. State of the Steelers says Russ. Sean Mahan says Danger Russ, Mr. Unlimited. I don't even know about that whole thing. I don't even know about that nickname thing, so I got to learn more about that.
Yeah, you got to watch the video.
Russ. Steeler Chick 46 says Russ. Steel Dog 88 says Wilson. Joseph Donovan says Russ. Thomas Riley says Wilson. Russell Wilson. John S says KP8. He keeps the receipts. Rob Thitoff says Kenny Pickett all the way. Gavin Anthony says Russ. CD says Kenny Pickett to see if he's a guy or not. Demetrio says he hopes it's Pickett because otherwise you're in trouble. You're starting over again trying to get your answer. Like I said, I think the biggest thing they need from Kenny Pickett this year is an answer. And at the end, it's got to be yes or no. Not that, do we really know? Do we know all the factors? I want to convince me. Yes. Convince me. Okay. Because I'm not someone who's, a lot of people are convinced right now. I'm not. So somebody like me who would like to be convinced. John Walter says, or Russell Wilson. He says, and fans call for Pickett. Andrew Wilbar, I saw he was in here earlier. He says Russ. Let's see. Kyle Smith says KP8. Jeremiah Yoder says Russell Wilson. We got other people that are answering the wide receiver question, which is pretty cool. I'm not going to bring those up, but that's a great discussion for everybody. John Funker says Wilson. Pittsburgh Toddy says Russ without a doubt. I don't think it's without a doubt. I don't think it's without a doubt now. I want it to be without a doubt come September 1st. I don't want there to be a doubt. I want us to know. All right, this is who the Steelers are going with. This is what they should do. Reginald Rivers says Russell Wilson. That was too many R's.
That was too many R's. Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
And then Russ says Russ. I wonder why Russ. George Rice says Russ, of course. Mr. Woodside says Wilson. Wilson Pickett will be traded for 5th rounder. No, because Wilson Pickett. That's funny. Yeah. Hey, honestly, if the Steelers could get something for Kenny Pickett, I wouldn't be shocked if they took it. I just don't know if they would. Steelers Freak, you says that about Wilson stopped interviewing. They promised at the start. Our source said they didn't. Yeah. They didn't. They promised him a chance to say, if you think you're better, be better. Okay. Debbie Dickerson says Russ. Let's see here. Sherry, was this Sherry's answer? I'm not sure this Sherry's answer or not, but she says Kenny can't be killed, at least not week 1. Either way, that was pretty good, Sherry. Harvey Stone says Russ. Tom Vallejo says Wilson. Blake Littrell, say that. He says it's Mr. Unlimited. He says KP surprises in 2025. I don't think even if he's not the guy in 2024, I don't even think he gets a chance. I don't even think he gets a chance.
There's no chance he sits a year to learn under Russell Wilson. No chance.
I'm still waiting for someone to throw a name out there other than Pickett or Wilson. I really was, because Michael Martin said it's either Russ or Wilson if it isn't Penix. so I like this. Steelers Nation Australia says QB1 Mr. Unlimited. Dennis Pavlak says Russ. Oh man, this is a lot of people here tonight. Let's see. Well, Tom actually then changed his answer to say Pickett starts but gets benched. Okay.
Here was one too.
Yeah. Did I miss what it said? Even did you
Russ
sit? Okay.
Even Tom Brady had to sit
and
marinate. So, but he's saying Russ gets it before Kenny.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Hear anything about Holcomb's injury? Didn't know. That's the big question a lot of people are asking. Is anyone else that's actually the thing? I like Sherry's answer again. She says it's not Mitch. Thank God. I'll be honest with you. I think too many people associate Mitch's play with Kenny's play.
That's
Mitch
very
was
true.
Bad. He was every game he stepped on the field, they lost 0-5 in any game he appeared. Okay.
Yep.
Ian Covell, hopefully I said that right. Says he's going for Pickett.
Here's an elite one.
I like that one. Yeah. Okay. Ruben Stone says Kenny.
Okay.
I don't know if this was the answer or not, but Paul, is that Tapia? I guess it says trust Pickett. Man, this is. I think I got them all. Whew, we went way over tonight, but there's a lot to talk about. There was a lot to talk about. This was a pretty big. To me, this was probably going to be your biggest news day based on stuff that happened with everything with the Steelers. So we had a lot of news to discuss.
Don't think the Steelers are done though. I think they've got a lot more to do. Yeah, a lot more to do.
I'm doing a salary cap article for the morning to do stuff with that. There's a couple things that I'm not including in my number yet. Like, I'll probably go ahead and knock off the $500,000 that the Steelers are losing in this trade until something else gets moved. I still don't know with Russell Wilson how much. It's not much. The question is there a veteran salary benefit possibility there, which would make it even lower. So other than that, I'll get all the other numbers ready. That'll be on SteelCurveNetwork.com for you tomorrow morning. I think it's going to be bright and early, as long as I can get it done tonight, because it is a lot of work. But I just threw a ballpark out there without even knowing all the numbers. I think they're still, like, I'm going to say probably 17. They still probably have 17 million. And I haven't done it yet. That's my guess now before I actually do the numbers. Make sure you check it out, all of their podcasts. We're going to continue to break down stuff. And I also have another new podcast with FFSN that I want y'all to check out. Steelers Podcast. Black and Gold Blueprint. Roy Countryman. I'll be honest with you, Jeremy. It was almost Roy sitting here tonight. If you would have been able to schedule it,
that would have been a good choice.
I wanted him to come in and promote his podcast. It's good stuff. I really enjoy it. Last Friday's show, he interviewed the Steelers chaplain.
Yeah, really good show.
I can't remember his name now. Why is it escaping me?
I can't remember it either.
Is it Cavalier or Chevalier? However you say it. Ken
Chevalier.
I can't say it right. I butcher names more than anything. I'm getting better at reading them here at the end. But make sure you check that out. And of course, like I said, we'll be back. I'm excited to get back with the preview for Thursday. I have some fun trivia for that one. I had it for last week, but couldn't join the show. I was listening to most of it, and then I decided, why am I standing here next to the pool when I could stop listening and get in the hot tub? So I did. But thank you so much for joining us, Jeremy. Why don't you tell us, where people can find you, plug anything, or any closing thoughts that you have here tonight?
Yeah, definitely give me a follow on the old X platform. I'm nearing 500 followers. Love to get that mark very quickly. It'd be awesome. And so you can follow me there at thebets93, THEBETZ93, as it says on the screen here. Andrew Wilbar was in the chat, and he mentioned several times to go check out our show on the FFSN NFL feed, wherever you get your podcasts. We're doing a NFL draft preview show all the way until the draft. This
Nice.
This week's episode, ironically and fittingly enough, is all about wide receivers and cornerbacks. So definitely good timing for us on that one. You can watch that, or you can listen to that one wherever you get your podcast. It should be out tomorrow, Wednesday. And then if you missed that, or you want to see the video rendition of it, I think that's going to hop up on the Steel Curtain Network YouTube channel on Saturday. So that is something that you can check out there. I do the Steelers Sunday night Q&A every week, unless I'm out of town or sick or something like that. So check that out Sunday night, 8:30, with varying guests. And then the Steelers Fix, doing that every Tuesday right now as well. So lots of content coming from me. If you like to hear the sultry sounds of my voice, keep checking out all of my work.
All right. So any other final thoughts about quarterback or the Steelers free agency or anything else you want to say there?
Just my theme, and it's kind of yours too. It's may the best man win. And
Yes.
whoever does that, whether it's a let's ride or, whatever Kenny Pickett's slogan would be, whatever works. Let's go get a playoff win this year.
That would be going in the right direction. So Thank you very much for joining me, Jeremy. Hope Big Bro, hopefully, if you're ever listening to this,
Yes.
hopefully get you
Feel
back
better.
next week so we can talk one of the defensive positions. Can't wait.
Can't wait.